Hi, Brian. It's great to see you. Thanks for chatting with me today.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Teresa. Really appreciate it.
I've been looking forward to our conversation because I've been an editor of the journal for almost 20 years now. And I know you're thinking there's no way you're old enough to do anything for 20 years, but thank you. But I've been here this long enough to know the power of the Rockwell Automation and the companies in its partner network ecosystem. So today we're going to talk about how Rockwell and the partner network strengthens IT/OT synergies to position Rockwell and partners to best deliver cybersecurity and networking solutions for customers. And we're also going to talk about some trends and things that manufacturers can do. So let me start with this question first. What are cybersecurity challenges and outcomes that industrial firms are trying to achieve? What are their goals?
Yeah, it's a great place to start. That's usually where we start. What does the customer need to achieve? What do they want to achieve? They usually are mismatched between what they think is achievable, either near term or even long term, what they might have already thought that they had achieved as well. So we usually start right there. Customers ultimately are trying to achieve continuity. They want to maintain their operation. We're dealing with operational technology and manufacturers. They have to maintain the manufacturing environment, producing what it's intended to do, whether that's energy, coal, water, and part of critical infrastructure, or whether that's cans, bottles, food, beverage, oil, gas, whatever it may be. They want to maintain that continuity. Anything that disrupts that continuity is extremely disruptive to the entire organization in itself. And so a cyber event certainly is that. So at the very top of the chain is maintaining safe, secure operations, and maintaining their continuity and their business resilience.
So when you presented at the Rockwell Automation Partner Network Conference this spring, which for listeners who don't know, the Partner Network Conference is a group of companies who provide solutions and services that complement Rockwell's, and they gather every spring to talk about how they can better serve customers. And you presented and you shared an anecdote about a pharma company that needed the right foundational network to accommodate digital worker improvements. Could you share that anecdote with our listeners?
Yeah, sure. No doubt that COVID brought about the remote worker, but certainly inside of life sciences, pharmaceuticals, connected worker, remote worker has been a concept in all of manufacturing for that matter. It's no secret that OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, machine builders, ship machines to manufacturing environments and sites. Part of their contracts are to be able to support that equipment. And a lot of times supporting it remotely is the most effective way to go do that. In particular, during COVID, it became very important for drug manufacturers, especially those that were making drugs to help us get through the pandemic at the end of it all. So remote worker became a very, very important concept for those, and secure remote access. Just having secure remote access in and of itself, and the fact that secure is in the word is a bit of a misnomenclature. The product inherently in and of itself may not necessarily be secure. You have to enable the product to be secure. Furthermore, you have to have a network that you land the secure remote access technology on that allows it to be secure as well. And so looking at a secure remote outcome of digital worker, remote worker is one, but thinking about the fact that you're adding an enabling technology could be a very disabling technology at the end of it, because you've now made your network more vulnerable. So if you look at what you're really trying to do, I'm trying to enable remote workers into my environment through a technology, secure remote access. But you might be doing exactly the opposite of that. You might be thinking of it as an unsecure remote worker. It's not just those who are using the secure remote access technology to come into the environment. It could be those malicious actors who are taking advantage of the network's vulnerabilities. So the purpose of the conversation there was that we had to take a look at how to create a segmented, robust IEC 62443 network structure in order to land the secure remote access technology onto the network in a secure, resilient way that allowed us to maintain continuity within the environment.
So today we're talking about partnerships and the importance of working together. What are, in your opinion, the steps to a successful cybersecurity services partnership?
Yeah, I love that question because Rockwell Automation has always had a very holistic and robust partner ecosystem. You mentioned PartnerNetwork conference. There's hundreds of partners between our distributor partners, our integrator partners, our technology partners. It takes this massive ecosystem to solve very complex problems, to know an industry, to know a customer. Those are all really important things that we do really well. I think if you take some of our competitors or some of those who participate in the space, sometimes they're singular in nature. They are a technology or they are a consulting company. Rockwell strives to be ultimately most everything to everybody. And I know that that's almost impossible to do, but it is brought to you by hundreds of different solution providers, different technologies, different people with different expertise. And Rockwell has to be the quarterback of that effort, trying to think about how to put our partners in the best position. Conversely, it's how our partners can be very close to our customers and how they can bring in Rockwell's expertise. And I have a feeling we're going to get there, Theresa, and just talk a little bit more about what that means. But it's really about trying to bring the very best of anybody inside an ecosystem to a customer to make sure or ensure that we are going to deliver the outcomes.
So last fall, Rockwell acquired Verve. So what does that mean in terms of value for customers? What does Verve bring to the table?
Yeah, Verve is a really, really powerful tool. Verve's customers really tell the best story about what Verve is. I think if you read about Verve or you see a blog or a post or something, and it says that Verve is an OT asset management, risk management, vulnerability management tool, that doesn't do it very much justice. I mean, I had a customer tell me, a Verve customer, longtime Verve customer, tell me, Verve isn't a tool. Verve is the tool of all tools. Verve isn't the strategy. Verve helps me guide my strategy. Verve does so many things for our organization. It creates this data set and this data structure that allows us to make educated decisions about our risk profile and how we're going to manage that risk. And so everything from dormant user accounts to how do I go about removing instances of technology that I no longer want in my environment anymore, simply trying to identify those types of things in a very complex, dispersed, multi-site, multi-regional environment is near impossible. And it's daunting for customers to think about how they might go about that. And historically, what they've tried to do with multiple tool sets to go do that. With Verve, it's a Swiss Army knife of tools. And it really can help customers make very, very educated decisions about where their highest levels of risk exist and how they can go about mitigating, managing, reducing, eliminating that risk. So it is a very, very powerful tool at the end of the day. And it makes total sense for Rockwell to have acquired such a technology. It is an OT tool for the OT environment, and it does so many things that are gaps in a lot of tools efforts today. And so I really look forward to trying to make sure we get as many folks within our ecosystem and within our customer base as well, educated more and more about how they could use Verve to help them.
Yeah, and so many companies kind of get stuck on how do we get started? What strategies do we decide on? So that's a big help. And there are many phases to deciding how to fortify cybersecurity. What are the phases that you've identified that the journey your customers go through, and how do they find out what kind of outcome they want or what kind of outcome is possible, and then design a solution for that outcome?
It's a perfect segue from where we were with Verve, and again, why Rockwell would have acquired a tool like Verve to have to help our customers. We rely on the NIST cybersecurity framework, and so NIST 800, and we talk about identify, and identify is so critical because you can't really move through any of the other phases of NIST successfully if you don't figure out identify correct. I don't know if I shared this story at PNC, but it's one of my favorites. And it came to me from a conference I was at, and the speaker was a CISO for an insurance company, and she said, we did NIST in reverse. She says, I don't recommend anybody do that, but we were responding to an incident, and I had to go back and think about what were all of the things that we did or we didn't do or we got wrong in all of the other categories. We didn't identify our entire asset base. We didn't protect things that were vulnerable because we had gaps. We didn't have a visibility and awareness that we needed. And so the idea now that governance sits inside of NIST is really important. I thought that was a really great evolution of NIST 2.0, not to be confused with European standards NIST 2, but NIST 2.0 back in December, a release of a longstanding framework with governance now encompassing all of the other categories. So identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And Verve can help you identify your entire asset base. It lives at the asset base. And so when you can know and understand upwards of 300 characteristics of a single asset, it's a really, really powerful tool to understand interconnectivity in an OT environment, which is so important because you're not just going to run out and patch everything. But you need to identify everything so you can know what your risks are and then what are your next steps. And your question then went on to say, how do you identify the outcome? Well, if we're in the identify category and we identify the risks and the vulnerabilities, we may come up with patching programs. We may come up with governance. Change your passwords to something with 8 characters and special characters and who met that compliance level. It might be segmentation, it might be firewalls, it might be rerouting, reconfiguration of what's already been segmented. It might be micro-segmentation. So as we move across into protect, at least we have all of the information that we need to be successful in protect from the identify. So the outcomes may change based on the information we have and based on the amount of risk we have as well, which changes over time, which is a really important concept because you need to be doing it in real time. Static assessments of my identify in my environment were only that moment in time. It really changes minute by minute and certainly day by day and month by month. So getting back to identify, that'll help us figure out what we want to prioritize. That will become what we strive for in the outcomes moving forward.
That's a good point. So the NIST-based approach is helping customers focus on the resources for their cybersecurity, correct? It
is. It helps you think about activities that you would go do. And it thinks, but it can be troublesome though, because in doing that, it may lead you to a point solution. And you may think that the point solution solves the problem. And it may solve the problem at a moment in time. Companies now are getting to a maturity level 2 and 3 years down the road, and they're realizing that they have to come back, just like this person who had talked about NIST in reverse. They didn't go back and do reassessments of the environment to see the gaps they had. There's another slide and chart comes from Gartner that I really like. I think most people are familiar with it, but it talks about an infrastructure journey or a control system journey with that awareness and visibility have to be at the very beginning, right? You have to be visible and you have to be aware, and then you're going to figure out what you're going to go do next, and it becomes some sort of firefighting exercise. But then you kind of settle it down and you get into integration and optimization. And what's really important for us as Rockwell Automation and an OT cybersecurity focused company and our ecosystem being OT focused is that not a lot of customers and companies get it right from an OT lens. They think they've integrated and optimized an IT tool for an OT environment. But if you truly came back and looked again at your visibility and awareness, and you tried to identify everything, you'll see that you have gaps again. So really important for everybody to continuously do this with a good set of tools, multiple, perhaps a Swiss Army knife and more. It's not just Verve that's going to solve everybody's everything, but with an OT expertise and an OT lens and that ongoing consultative partnered approach that perhaps takes an ecosystem to deliver as well. Well,
the need for strengthening cybersecurity increases and continues because the attacks on manufacturing continues to increase. So thank you, Brian, for chatting with me about this important topic.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's getting even worse, Teresa. Just the city of Cleveland will tell you about that. It's one of the most recent incidences, and just seeing some reports that critical infrastructure, especially in the water side of things, is now under more scrutiny and attack than ever before. And just the environment itself is aging infrastructure. And so we've got a lot of work to do to get in there and help our customers identify, protect, and
Yeah,
move the rest of the NIST categories as well.
that's just frightening. It's frightening.
Truly, where are we going without water?
That's right. Well, thank you again. And listeners, thanks for joining us. You can check out resources in the show notes for more information about cybersecurity and what Rockwell's Automation is doing with its partners. I'm Theresa Houck with the Journal Magazine, and we'll chat again soon.